Fantastic. We're live here. So we're going to be, I think we're 2 minutes before people expect for us to show up. So we can just smile and look, hey, this is kind of neat. All right, cool. No, welcome everybody. This is the e-learning hot seat. My name's Stephen Laddick. I am from LMS Pulse. You may also know me from the e-learning success summit. I am super, super excited to have with me Smruti Sudarshan today. She was is one of our stellar, fantastic expert speakers at the e-learning success summit this year. She talked about how to use big data and how to use data analytics to really understand your courses. And quite honestly, Smruti, your presentation was one of those ones where even I had one of those like, holy smoke moments, where you kind of put on the table what was learned and how some of your clients in the past or some of the organizations you've worked with in the past, how they've changed their approach to the training because the data told them, hey, look, you got to do it differently, right? Which is something that's the whole reason we do this. So before I go further, we know I want you to give a little bit about who you are, who you work for, what it is that you do, so that we kind of have context and, know what an expert you are.
Sure. So my name is Smruti Sudarshan, so as you can see, but I work for LinkedIn as an e-learning training specialist, and I concentrate only on the e-learning aspect of their trainings, and I give them end-to-end e-learning solutions so that, and strategies in order to enhance their learning and also in order to give the learners what they want to learn about.
So is that an internal e-learning job or is it external? Because obviously there's Linda Learning became LinkedIn Learning and this. So are you on the LinkedIn Learning side of it, or is this like?
I wish I was on the LinkedIn Learning side, but this is
hello management. We need to change something now.
But this is on the internal aspect of it. So I work for the trust and safety team. So we are. So what we do is any post or anything that comes up on LinkedIn is what we are going to scan through. And what the trust and safety team does is that they're going to scan through it and they're going to analyze it and say that whether it's actually applicable or not. So there are two kinds of, there are two branches to it. So one being the premium fraud section and the other being the ACE section. So premium fraud is where we deal with only jobs and ads, and ACE is where we actually deal with the content and how it goes, and mostly like Twitter and the content moderation. But I work for the trust and safety, so anything that is unsafe LinkedIn, please report it to us on trust and safety.
Okay, awesome. Now how does that relate to e-learning solutions? So what are we learning from these these types of posts, these types of things that you're monitoring? Like give us a sense of what is it that you look for?
Right. So what we do is that when we look at a post, we actually see whether if the image is appropriate, or not me exactly, but the analysts and the content moderators, they look for the posts and they say that whether the content is appropriate, whether the text is appropriate, and then whether the image is appropriate. So basically, LinkedIn is a professional platform. So we would like to keep our members first rather than keeping anyone else in mind. So we want to keep the content safe for the members. And what we do with the training team is that we help them deal with the policies. There are certain company policies, and we train our content moderators on those policies so that they can kind of go ahead and do their job better, and we can keep LinkedIn safe together.
Awesome. Fantastic. So I know that we wanted to start, well, before we go down there, I always forget to do this, but if you do have a question about LinkedIn Learning, about how health and safety and security in LinkedIn work, if you have a question about e-learning or big data or artificial intelligence, spoiler alert, please put it in the comments right now or throughout this conversation here, because we do see your comments and this is live, so we'd be happy to answer them. So please join us in this conversation, because that's what it's all about. I know that what we wanted to talk about to start our conversation around today was digital body language, right? So give me an understanding of what in the world does that mean? Like just define that for me before we start talking about it.
Right. So, okay. So for example, you watch Netflix every day, right? So when you go ahead and say you click on a horror movie, or whatever it is, a comedy movie.
I think we
or
know
whatever.
what you watch now. That's cool.
So when you go and click ahead on horror movies, what happens is that there's certain suggested movies that come up later on. So when you go ahead and log into it, so similarly with Amazon as well. So when you go shopping, you say that you want this dress, then you go ahead and click on that dress, and then you have that click that comes, the click that goes on any website. So that click is something known as your body language. So if I say that my eye is going here, like, see, if you can see my eye is going up here, so that again is one of the body language. And when I go and click on certain areas on the screen, so all those are nothing but your digital body language. So this is a marketing term. It's nothing to do with learning. So what happened is that I thought maybe we could use this marketing term in learning, so that we can track our learners on the LMS, and we can actually build a certain footprint of what they do on the LMS, so that we can analyze them better, and we can put out the data in our day-to-day solutioning or anything, so that we know how exactly the learners behave online. So basically, just like shoppers, even the learners have certain behaviors online. Like, for example, if I consider like an exploratory learner, so I am an exploratory learner. So when I go into an LMS, it's not just one course that I stick to. So maybe I can just go stick to one course and then go through the entire course, but then I would not finish the exam part of it because I didn't like the course. Or if I like some other thing, I would just finish half of it, or maybe I would just lose interest in between and then drop off that course. So all these are nothing but your body language, and this is something that the learners communicate to you through an LMS, which we cannot do while we are actually there on an ILT. So what happens in your instructor-led training or your VILT is that, like, if you see someone yawning, or like if you see someone like actually dozing off in another word, then you can kind of engage the class. You can see their face, and then you can actually engage the class and tell them that okay, fine, this is what you want, I'll give you a pop quiz now. Or if you have like a marker, just throw it, and then you're like, okay, you get up and stuff like that. So we can do that on an ILT or in a classroom setting, but we cannot do that on e-learning, and only a digital body language is what helps us analyze what the learners are online. So this is what digital body language is.
So what, and I want to first acknowledge Giorgio. Thank you for your question about the future of AI. I'm gonna hold on to that for just a second, and because that's actually part of where we're gonna go in this conversation here. But digital body language. So I can already hear so many people out there thinking, oh gosh, this is 1984. This is Big Brother watching me. This kind of. What are the kinds of things that a typical LMS out of the package? Just sort of out of the box, either at my university or at my my company or my school, whatever. What are the types of things that it's already tracking? Just sort of like I said, sort of standard.
Yeah. So one thing that I don't know, which I've seen across all LMSs, is I think the completion rate. There are manual ways of where you can complete a course, or maybe like you just have to click on exit and then the entire course completes. So that is one manual completion rate is one thing. The second thing what we can see is that the quiz completion rates. So how many learners have taken the quiz? That is something that, but we do not have granular level of tracking the quizzes, like how exactly did this learner answer this quiz, or how much time did the learner take to answer this quiz. So that is one. So that is not there in any of the LMSs. I've not seen that as so far. So basically you just have like the quiz part of it. The third thing that we have, I think, is the click rate. The next part, how you go into the next, and then the progress bar that is there. So that is something that we have. And apart from that, basic standard is the certification, wherein you can download the certificate once you're done with the course. Yeah. So those are the basic things that I've actually seen on an LMS until now.
And so how are you adding in other aspects to create more of this body language that, people would be, or especially you would be most interested in? Are these plugins that you're bringing into LMS? Are there specific tools that you're using? Or, what are the ways that you sort of make that more robust?
Right. So what we do is that there's this entire system that works at the backend, which has machine learning, and it's not basically a plugin, but then there are like two systems that are working in parallel. So one system would be your the digital body language or any kind of machine that's working, and your front end would be your LMS. So basically, the backend and the front end would be communicating with each other in order to analyze the data. So what kind of data will the LMS provide is basically like what are the time zones on which the learners log in, and the device on which they log in, like for example mobile, tablet, or a desktop. So what kind of device do they log in on? And the third thing, maybe like, yeah, the login times is one thing, and the devices, and then what else do we track? There are so many other things that there's so many things that we track online. And then yeah, maybe like, the quiz rates on which like at what time this quiz was completed, and the drop off rates when the learner drops off, and when he or she logins. And yeah, there are many things we can track on it, but these are just like the basic few of them I just told you.
So maybe break down for me how this might be used, or how this might be characterized for those of us, who've never seen it, especially if, for people who are students out there or lifelong learners. There's been so many people, for example, over the last year who've taken courses in MOOCs like LinkedIn Learning, right? Where Netflix, right? There's thousands and thousands of courses. I can go there and you kind of go click and you do it. And that's one type of course, but then you've got instructor-led courses, right? That are much more personalized, and then the instructor will be getting the data. Who's looking at this, and how is it consumed? Like, what's the efficacy of using this when if I have thousands of students, or if I have tens of thousands of students?
Right. So that's actually a very good question. So what I can do is that I can break it down into three aspects of it. So when you're using a system like this, there needs to be three, front ends for it. So one being the learner dashboard, which I see or a learner sees, and then the second being your Facilitator dashboard. So whoever is teaching, or whoever kind of like the instructional designers, L&D consultants, so they are the ones who see one thing, and the other one is the super admin who has access to both. So super admin knows how exactly both of them are doing. So if any problem is there, you need to go into the super admin. You have to raise anything you want to do, you have to raise it with the super admin. So what happens during this time is that, so the communication is going on between the student and the teacher or the facilitator, but then the monitoring is happening from the super admin side. So this super admin is not a human, so it's a only the intervening is done by a human, but then the system actually acts as the super admin. So when like say if a teacher is communicating with the super admin, then the teacher actually kind of can instruct the super admin to say that give me this person's day-to-day logins, or maybe this person's quiz data, how exactly is he performing in the entire course, or why exactly did he drop from the entire course. So basically what happens is that, so when you're analyzing the data from the instructor side of it, so you're going to see that there's going to be a graph that can be kind of created. So so that's known as a champion graph, which we just call it internally. So again, so when you're going to create that graph, you're actually going to see that how exactly the learners are dropping off, how exactly the learners are learning at this point in time. So basically the real time analysis is what the facilitator gets, but the learner gets mostly in terms of the suggestions, like as you said, the Netflix part. So to direct them in the direction they want to go, it's not the facilitator who is doing it, but it's the learner who wants to go in that direction. So we give them like options on what you want to learn about, and then how exactly is your progress on each one of the courses, and why exactly did you drop off from the course. So for example, if I say that a learner dropped off the course like after the first whatever you call it, the first module or topic, whatever. So if say suppose the learner drops off from the first module, and then the facilitator can actually intervene and say that why did he drop off. did you exactly drop off from the first module? So I'm analyzing the data here. So I see that for course 1, module 1, you've dropped off here. Why is it that you've dropped off here? So is there anything that we can do better, or if there's any reason why you dropped off? So that's one thing. But then the second thing is that whenever a learner goes and does the quizzes, so like say for example, the learner has taken 10 minutes to do first question, but then on the second question he does it in 1 second. Like, what were you doing for 10 minutes on the first question that you did it in 1 second for the second question? So what is it that is lacking? So how is it? So basically all these interventions can take place only when you have certain data in place, and also when there is this continuous engagement with the LMS between the learner and the LMS. So with the COVID situation right now, it's very important that the learner kind of communicates with the computer. If he or she doesn't communicate with the computer, then we do not get to know what the body language is, and the data and anything that you put online would kind of go redundant at the end of the day. So efficacy rate of it, it's a slow process. So basically when you just put it on an LMS, as soon as you implement it is somewhere you do not get the data, but you'll definitely get the data like after like 1.5 months, when there's this continuous engagement that goes on. So you get that huge data only once there is this continuous engagement, and that's when you kind of start scaling it up.
What are the typical, it sounds to me like at LinkedIn, are you working with hundreds of users, thousands of users, tens of thousands of learners? Like how many data points do you get to look at on a regular basis?
To be honest, I don't know. I've not kept count of it. I don't know. It's like some terabytes or something like that from the LinkedIn Learning side, because there's like so many. It's not only with the outside world, but LinkedIn Learning does have certain instructors or courses with the globally. But then there's internal employees also who use LinkedIn Learning for certain courses for them. So again, it's huge. It's very huge. Like, I don't know, almost equivalent to Facebook data or Instagram data. I don't know. It's very huge.
That's really so. Take me to the next. So like, what, if I'm an instructor and I'm putting a course together, or I guess maybe there's several layers here. So if I'm an instructor and I put a course together, what do I want to look at, first, as I'm mining this data? And then if I want to take it up to sort of the, the course level, or maybe the certificate level where there's multiple courses, what do I want to look? And then to the degree level, like where, what are the different layers of reports, of results that I want to look at? Like, how do I aggregate this data to have it make sense and actually be worthwhile for me?
Right. So what I'll do is that I'll divide this into 3 main uses of data mining, or the educational EDM, as they say it. So basically what we spoke about right now was the digital body language, which is about, the learners kind of leaving their footprints on the screen, and then, or on the LMS, and then we going and kind of like actually analyzing it. But how does that analysis happens, and how do we exactly get the data, is through the educational data mining, wherein we actually kind of take decisions, or maybe like certain, like if you have seen the TripAdvisor. So on TripAdvisor, what happens is that you look into a hotel on the basis of ratings that they take, or on the basis of the stars that are there. Those are like the simple decisions that we take on only just on the basis of those stars and the data that is there. So similar to that, what we're going to do is that here as well, we're going to mine the educational data and provide certain visualizations to both the instructors as well as the learners, so that they can take their decisions better in day-to-day life. So for example, now if I have to divide this into 3 sections, maybe I can just say for the L&D aspect of it, first thing is that we get to discover the learning behaviors online with a lot of data models. So what I mean by a data model is that we are actually putting the learner, like if I have, like say example, or if I have like say about 30 learners who are there who are taking my course right now, so all those 30 learners are going to show certain behavior online. Like for example, if I say that there's this game that is there online, so I have put a game online because I felt it was so good to put a game online for that course. So me as an L&D consultant, I am going to say that this is the solution that's going to work for you, and I'm going to put the game online. But then what happens is that learners kind of pass level 1. Maybe after few learners get to level 2, and then the last one is the mastery level. They like only like 1 or 2 get to the level 3. So what happens with this data mining is that we actually see there's a drop, like there's a graph that shows a drop, and we can see that why exactly are these guys dropping off. It might be because maybe they are like field engineers, and they want something that is more on the job rather than playing a game. When they're on a call, and then they play a game, and then just the level 1 of it, and then level 2. So this is such a repetition for them, so they do not want to do that. Or the second thing is that your levels are very difficult. So from level 1 to level 2, when you're jumping, so level 2 is very difficult. Maybe like all of them are not able to clear level 2, or all of them are not able to clear level 3. So these are certain behaviors which we can kind of go ahead and catch online, and create this thing for entire. I'm just giving 30, but then there are huge amounts. You just get to see a lot of data online. So what I can say is that you can build models based on answering certain questions, like what sequence of topic is most effective for the learners. Maybe your topic sequence is not correct for them, that they can understand the entire course. So for example, if I have to say AI is something that I have to teach online, but the learners actually they want it in certain sequence. I am targeting an audience who's there globally. So if I put the first task as coding, I think I don't know anyone is going to code AI in the first go of it, or maybe even on the third or the fourth go as well. They would not be comfortable with coding the AI and the machine learning part of it. So the sequence of topics, what is most effective for the learners, is one question you can answer pretty well. The second thing is that the learner actions that are associated with learning. So as I said, like the game and then all of that. So also what learner actions indicate satisfaction, engagement, and the learning progress. So satisfaction rates can be kind of even captured from the learning data, wherein you're going to check the drop off rate. So if the drop off rate is very high, I will assume, again, it's an assumption on the basis of how exactly the data is showing me, that the learners are not satisfied with the course, and I need to make some change to the learning strategy. So that is one satisfaction rate. Or other thing is the engagement rate. So maybe the course is not engaging. Like for example, if you've seen, it's a mandatory thing. Like whenever you onboard, you have this entire compliance course that they give you, and then this data security infosec course and all of that. So what do we actually do? I'm not blaming anyone here, but then as employees, even myself, I am also not going to actually view the entire thing. I'm just going to go ahead and click next until I get the certificate at the end of the day, because it happens every quarter. So it also means that if a learner is spending like 1 second on that page, or like 2 seconds on that page, like why are you spending just 1 second? There's so much information on the page, and why are you spending only 1 second on the page? So that is something that we can pinpoint and tell that there is no engagement over here. And also this also happens with a lot of technical courses, especially when there are like these huge code snippets that are there, and there's just like very less amount of data, and then this code snippets are something that they have to implement it in a sandbox environment or something like that. So this happens usually when the engagement is low. And in technical courses, usually the engagement is kind of going to be low, because we have a lot of DIY projects that needs to be done offline, which needs a lot of time. So we can actually gather that, and we can see that, okay, this engagement is not going all right, so maybe we may have to change our learning strategy here. And then obviously the learner progress. So the learner progress is something which even the learners can see, and even me as facilitator or super admin can also see what the learner progress is. So learner progress here can be of different ways. So it doesn't have to be that I have to stick to one course, but even if I finish like 3 courses in a day, or maybe like 3 courses in a month, that is also progress. So again, depends on how you want to calculate your progress as well. So the other one, I don't know, this is again something that came out of research for us, was the what features of an LMS will lead to better learning. I mean, it's a very controversial thing. So what the thing is that there were like old LMSs usually had this what do you call that? They just had this engagement wherein you can go ahead and just block the calendar. I don't know if you've seen these LMSs wherein they just have a calendar, and then they have like a catalog, and then they just say that these are like the live events that are there. You can go ahead and attend it. So they call that as an LMS. But I don't know why do you even call that as an LMS if you have to just give like some event management kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So that is something that we kind of figured out, like what features are needed in an LMS, and how exactly, like, it doesn't enable the learner to do anything except for booking the slots. So if you have to enable the learner to learn better, and if you have to say that this course is doing something better, then we may have to put in certain features, like for example, like the social like the peer-to-peer learning, wherein you have like discussion threads that are going on, and how exactly is the knowledge sharing going on your platform, or maybe like a like button, share, and then subscribe, not subscribe, like you just have that like, comment, and share on your LMS. So these are certain features that are like few micro interactions, but then it's going to kind of help the learner pretty much better in what they have to learn about. So yeah, so this is about few questions that you can kind of analyze. But yeah, this is one of
So in your experience, as you've been working with this and looking at analytics, what has been the difference between teaching what you might consider a very technical skill or a very hard, really hard skill, for lack of a better term, mathematics, engineering, computer science, these things where it's like, look, there's a right or wrong answer, there's code that you can put in, or there's, a formula that you can use. And what we've definitely seen, especially over the last year, whatever, but soft skills training. So leadership development, conflict resolution, mental health, these kinds of things. What types of different data are available there? Or is it still, we're still kind of just relying on the platforms that we have? Or is, less is more? Let me just leave it there for you.
Okay, so yeah, so the difficulty level of teaching that skill is a little different. So for example, if I'm taking the leadership training, so what I do, like in a leadership training, is that again, this is an example. So what we do with the leadership training is that you may want to learn about resource allocation. How do you exactly allocate the resources on your team, or how exactly do you put the budgets online, or how do you do all that? So those are certain things that come under the leadership training example. So what we do for all of that is that we have a simulated environment wherein we actually tell the learner to we give them a project online real time, and we say that see, this is this is team A, team B, and we divide them into groups, and we tell them, like, you are now going to you are the project manager right now, and how are you exactly going to manage the project? So we give them live simulations, or real time simulations, on where they can actually build a Gantt chart, or where they can actually go ahead and allocate the budgets for each one of the resources that they put on the Gantt chart. So for Gantt chart, what happens is that you have a timeline, like say for Monday to Wednesday, this person is working. From Wednesday to Thursday, this person will work. So what exactly are you putting in there, and the number of hours each one of them is putting. So all this comes under a simulation, or maybe you can call it like a game. You can, but then it's not a game, but it's just a serious game. Like, you're not actually playing a game. So so what do we do?
Games have many definitions. It's okay, no problem.
So it's a serious game, and people are actually doing their job before they get into a job as well, so they get a flavor of what they're doing. So when we track that data from the back end is where we analyze where exactly they're going wrong. So now, for example, if I say that there are like team A and B, so team A has like two members who are like, one is working on the budgets and the other one is working on the resource allocation, and similar to team B. So if team A says gets but the budget allocation wrong, and similar with the team B, that means that there is something wrong with your question itself, because both of them are trying to do the same thing, and that means they're getting the entire gist of the question wrong. But if you get different analysis from both of them, it means that something is not, it's not, there's nothing wrong with your question, but there's something wrong with the learner, or something, maybe you need to intervene or something like that, and then give them solutions to it. So this is in terms of leadership on how you're going to train. So again, it depends on how you do it. Like, for example, day one, I'm going to give you resource allocation. Day two, you finish the resource allocation, then in day two, I'm going to give you resource allocation plus the budget allocation, and then day three. So it's like a cumulative thing. So if I say that I'm running this course for 1 week, then cumulatively I'm going to give you like how exactly you can work or you can develop that. So basically it's like a 1 week trainer or something like that. So that is one thing. But apart from that, if you're doing like a content moderator job, then we do get something like the QA scores, which is like the on job scores that we get. And what we do is that there are certain, like, if the the people who are onboarded, if we do not kind of we see that there are certain policies in which they're doing wrong, or certain things that they're doing wrong in certain ways, so that is something that we can catch and give them certain refresher trainings. So even if we take, like, say a 1 week of training for them, like continuously, like, I'm going to teach you all these policies in 1 week, and then you just leave them online, and then you just tell them, just go ahead and work, and then we can actually catch them with the QA scores that they do. So the analysis, so if it is like 85%, and why is it that the 20% is going wrong, or why is it that this 30% is going on, and it's mostly like a step-by-step basis or week-by-week basis, wherein we're going to actually analyze the data and provide the solutions with it. I hope I answered it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm speaking with Smruti Sudarshan here. She works for LinkedIn. She is a e-learning solutions provider, and works on end-to-end e-learning solutions for the company. If you do have any questions for her, please put them in the comments for us right now. We'd be happy to take your comments. We have a couple right now that we'll get to in a second, but they're kind of, I was kind of reserving them for a little bit longer. I want to change the where we're going with the conversation right now to talk about sort of the future, because you've touched on it a couple of times. One of our questions, right here, that from Giorgio La Pietra, I'm probably butchering that name, I apologize. And he's asking, how do you think will be the future of AI on learning, right? And so you've spoken a couple of times, over the last 20 minutes or so about, the super admin, a machine learning aspect to things. This is what, artificial intelligence, one way to define artificial intelligence. Right. Are we really moving into a time where, artificial intelligence is taking over more and more of a role in training and learning, or still teacher-learner trick? What do you think? What's your vision for the future there?
So I think, I don't know, as of now, I can only come up with two things in mind. One is the intelligence tutoring systems. So that's something, like, I'm not telling replace the entire human aspect of it, but there are certain intelligent tutoring systems. For example, I don't know, I'd seen this somewhere, and I think it was for the US Army. I don't know where I'd seen it though, but it was called a Sherlock. And it was pretty smart in terms of using the data for specific learners to give them feedback and of the work that they do directly. I think it was called, the tutoring system was called as Sherlock, and it is actually being used by Air Force, I guess, Air Force technicians as of now, and to diagnose the electrical system problems problems in their aircraft. So what happens in an aircraft is that when you're sitting in, with this COVID and all, or any situation that is there, any pandemic situation, or if you're sitting online and you're learning something like a aircraft engine, you actually need this visualization, the 3D visualization of the aspect of how exactly the airplane looks like. So I'm not talking graphically, but then the electrical thing that is there inside. So because you're an army person and you are an electrical engineer or anything working in the army base, but you need something that you kind of can know that, okay, this wire goes here. Like, imagine you put in some wire somewhere just because you learned something online, and then so you actually need some help that is there, if not like a tutor who cannot take a face-to-face thing every time. So there was something known as Sherlock. So she was the one who was teaching these Air Force technicians to it was mostly like a felicitator. So I think they had a hologram, and she was actually going through the entire process of taking this plug, the wire, and putting it over here. So that is one, I think, is going to be the future of it. I mean, imagine if we could have this in schools, or any kind of the chemistry labs. I think you can just combine those chemicals in there, and then you can actually see what's exactly happening, or you may you can fail better in that environment rather than failing future. And I'm not saying that everyone is going to be a chemistry I don't know, like pharmacist or something like that, but then you give that environment to them wherein they can actually fail better. They fail faster before they get into any kind of environment that they're working on. So I think that was one intelligence system that I had seen over there. But if I have to say, the early applications of AI is already coming in the LMSs. There are 2 LMSs already that I've seen which have AI in it, and I think they kind of adapt to the learning styles for every educator as well as a learner. So I think those are 2 LMSs that I've seen. But also, apart from that, there is also something known as virtual facilitators, which I was talking about, Sherlock, and also the learning environment. And this kind of uses this gesture technology. I had seen this, I think, in one of the fire extinguishing trainings or something like that. They had this fire drill that was there, and wherein they had like gesture gloves on, and they had to actually go and select which what do you call that, the one that extinguishes the fire,
a fire extinguisher, a hose.
I don't know. There were like A, B, C, D. They were like there are many kinds of fire extinguishers, like the water, carbon dioxide, and all of that. So they had to kind of actually take that, use the gesture, take it and put it on a fire and see how the fire reacts. So this is one of the interesting things that I'd seen. Again, it was on a conference, but then it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it sounds, you're talking about virtual reality, immersive education in terms of, especially, I've had several conversations with individuals about how in dangerous situations, for example, fire people, or, fire responders, or first responders to emergencies, or, as you said, military, these kinds of applications where, giving them an actual simulation is either extraordinarily expensive or really truly dangerous to the human. Being able to then submerge themselves in those situations and make decisions. I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the data shows that these immersive environments actually end up resulting in not only really powerful training experiences, but almost as high quality as being really there, because you're actually doing the materials, right? Is that what you've learned as well?
Right. So actually, to add to that, there is this content analytics that I've seen, which was, content analytics. It's a very broad term. It also refers to AI, specifically the machine learning part of it. So if AI is a whole thing, and then content analytics just comes right in between that. So what happens is that when you kind of have these immersive and submersive readings, or like these trainings that are going on, so this platform on which these trainings are hosted is something that they optimize the learning modules for, that specific person or that specific learner. So what happens is that the content that is taught to the learners can be kind of analyzed for the maximum effect, and optimized also to kind of take care of the learner's needs. So these content analytics also kind of what do you call enables the educator and even the content providers or technical content providers to not just create and manage their e-learning content, but also like kind of gain these important insights into the learner progress, and also understand this engagement aspect of it, and the retention rates of it, and also the receptivity to the course, and how versatile the course is, and all of that. So I think that is something which I have seen as well. But we are going there like on a very it's a very step-by-step process. You just cannot replace a machine, a human with a machine. So it's there. I mean, I don't know. I like a bit
I'm not sure if step by step thing. I've been lucky enough. I spoke with another woman in South Africa quite recently. This is, less than a week old right now. And her entire company is built around, and I'll give a call out to her right now. Her company is called XR Global. And their entire business model is around providing virtual reality training solutions for banking, for agriculture, for government, for these kinds of things. And she was able to give me some extraordinary stories of the uptake, that they're able to provide. And even that today is the open secret about this is it's really just not that expensive to deliver, and it's not that expensive to develop for. So it's really, I don't know. I just get a little seasick when I put on the goggles. That's my problem. I get a little seasick. One of the questions that Christian Duque, who's my colleague here, I wanted to ask you: is it a good idea to take advantage of face detection technologies for student sentiment analysis in real time? Have you had any experience working with sentiment analysis? And some controversy there, especially with proctoring and these kinds of things, about actually watching a student's face and seeing what's going on. Maybe that gives you sentiment as well as an instructor. Any thoughts there?
Right. Yeah. So again, I deal with the data. So, I mean, data tracking is pretty easier when you're putting the course online, e-learning, because the engagement is in terms of clicks. So that is better. But if you have to go in for a virtual ILT right now, so I am on Zoom, and if I have to do face analysis and the sentiment analysis on Zoom, so that is something very difficult as of now. But maybe in future we can do it, because every time when we tell someone, I mean, there are people who like to turn on their videos, or they do not like to turn on their videos.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're like in a class of like say 50 people, and if you have to analyze the sentiments of each one of them, so that is something that's going to be a little difficult. But if you have to do it something in terms of their quizzes or something like that, for example, English learning, and you're working on a student's speech. So if a student comes to you and says that I am not confident in delivering this speech, I need to know it because I'm not confident with English. So what I can do is that maybe I can give her every day, her or him, I can give them every day to kind of record your video and send it across to me. And that is something that can go on sentiment. Even if you tell me after like 5 recordings or so, even if you tell me that I'm confident, but then my sentiment analysis is telling that you're not confident, or you're a little nervous while you're actually speaking, so that is where you can kind of go ahead and catch them. But to do it online and to do it in real time, I think it's going to be a task as of now.
Nice. Tell me about I want to learn about some of your aha moments that you've found as somebody who analyzes big data, as somebody who looks at some of these large data sets. Would you be willing to share maybe 1 or 2 case studies of something where you were really truly surprised with some of the analysis you had, or management was really they had an unexpected answer or something like that?
Yeah. So I think I shared this on the summit as well, the e-learning success summit, wherein like we had like 3, very big aha moments. Not exactly 3, but then we knew the first 2, but then the last one was a pretty big one. So one was that the learning happens all the time. So we could just see how the learning happens all the time on a graph, and why exactly it happens, and at certain times, at certain levels, why exactly it drops. So those timings are something something that we were definitely able to grab, and we could actually kind of implement them on like we could actually give a shout out to those courses only when people were there online. That was one. Second thing was that we found that higher the effort you put into a course, the rate of learning is going to be as low as it is. So this again is
I don't think I got that. I don't think I got that one. So more effort equals less
learning.
really.
Really, we actually did get that.
I forgot that one. You're gonna have to give me an example of that.
Yeah, so what happened was that I think there was one AI course that we had put online, and what happened is that first module, second module, third module, the engagement was like this. And then what happened was that as it came down to the quizzes, as it came down to implementing, and then the DIY projects and all of that, it just went like this. It just tapered down at the end of it. So that was the graph that we got. So the learning here was like huge, and then it just came down like this at the end of it, and we could see that like only 2 or 3 people had kind of completed the entire course with the thing. So how we calculated this was on the basis of quizzes that they were doing. And maybe I can put that graph online somewhere, but we could kind of understand the rate on the module one, quiz everyone 100%, the second one 80, then it just dropped down like that. And the end of the DIY project, we could just see that it was just a very tapered thing that we got. So what happened was that people who were actually reading more in the beginning were not the one who was sticking in the end, and who were actually learning more in the beginning were not sticking in the end. So what happened was that like when we were doing this entire analysis, we saw that the learning that took place, even though people were putting a lot of effort, the learners were putting a lot of effort in the beginning, was not the one that actually ended at the end of the day. So this was a very challenging thing for us. We had to kind of convince the stakeholders and say that, see, your ILT is not working right now. Even though students are putting effort, it's not working. You may have to change the strategy to something else.
That's really interesting. That it seems intuitive at the beginning, but now that when you see the whole thing, but to see about students come in, and did they drop off simply because, oh wow, now I've got this DIY project, that I actually have to really sort of, the teacher's not going to feed me information or anything like that, then I've really got to put the effort in. Is that what you're saying? Like that's the reason why they dropped off, or
No, actually, that was not the reason. The course was very engaging, actually, to be honest. Like, we had like scenarios, and then we had like real time, experimentations that they could do online. So everything was actually very nice. The engagement part was not the thing that we focused on. But then what happened is that the difficulty level of the course, like, see, when you're doing the course, the effort that you put in the beginning is definitely going to be higher when you put it at the end, right? So because your learning is going to be higher when you're actually going to learn about the coding part of it and things like that. So when you're doing the coding part is when you're going to implement the concepts that you've learned in the beginning. So when you're in the coding part, when you're doing it in the sandbox environment, you're definitely going to get certain errors which you'll be implementing on, and those errors, debugging is something that not all learners can do. I mean, again, depends on the kind of commitment or the time commitment that they are sitting and doing it on. So if you're telling that you're going to spend like 8 hours in a day, and you're saying that you studied for entire 8 hours, I sat in the training for 8 hours, now I know everything for 8 hours, again, that is effort from your end, but then it's not actually the effort that you're putting, which the results are showing and which the data is showing. So this is one thing that we kind of figured out, and it was very challenging to actually change a strategy only on the basis of this analysis.
What was the ultimate, like, what was the recommendation about how to change the course so that it either did you spread effort across the course, or like what, don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, so what we did was so what we had in the beginning was a blended, like, it was not a blended approach, but then we had like ILT. They would sit for an ILT, I think, for like 2-3 weeks. There was this boot camp that used to go on for them. So basically what we would do them is put them in a room and tell them to sit for like 8 hours straight during your working hours and just learn AI. Don't do anything else, just learn AI. That is what we were doing. But then later on, what we analyzed was that instead of giving them AI like for 8 hours straight, we thought like maybe we can divide it into like 1 week of self-learning, and then again they come back to us, ask questions, and then again another week of self-learning, come back and ask questions. So it kind of became a very blended approach. And then in the blended as well, even in the e-learning part of it, what we did was we gave them a lot of activities on the coding. As a code editor, we gave them activities there, rather than actually trying to sit them through a video of 5 minutes or 10 minutes, which was not going to help them at the end of the day. And also we provided them with job cards as a job aid, where they could take that and implement that concept on their DIY project.
Smruti Sudarshan she works for LinkedIn. She's an e-learning solution specialist. If you have any comments, we've got about 5 minutes left here. If you'd like to ask her a question about what she does and how she creates these solutions. We're talking about big data. What do you think is, like, what are you looking forward to most over the next 6 months, 1 year, in terms of ways to analyze, tools that you can use to analyze, how this may change learning in general? What are you looking forward to, or your team is looking forward to?
Yeah, I think I think right now in 6 months, I think we would, I don't know, hopefully, we would like kind of move towards mostly this data driven approach. Like it's also called as, I think there's this raves doing in the industry, known as the data driven learning design, that is going on. So maybe, in those next 6 months, we can implement this not only on LinkedIn, even for the K-12 education that is there. So I don't know how it works globally, but in India, we have a central, the government has a central repository of all the students. And these students not only are like the normal ones who go to school, like, come back, but there are also people who are with disabilities and employees with disabilities as well. So I would really like to track that data and actually learn on how they are going to learn. So because it's a very different ball game when you compare it to a normal corporate learner, or in terms of a normal student. But so some person with some kind of personality disorder, like for example autism, or something like that, like they have ADHD, hyper deficit disorder. So all of them also kind of like come under the learning. It's not like they cannot learn, it's just that the way they learn is a little different. So I would definitely like to track their learning and see how exactly they work and how they understand, so that we can provide them with learning better, rather than putting them in a conventional box of a schooling and then say that you're going to have to actually sit through this 8 hours of thing. So again, it depends on how exactly they learn. So I really want to track that and see and create a learner model just to analyze how they work and how they function and how we can help them better.
That's very, I mean, these are all pieces of accessibility that you're talking about as well, right? Which is, how can we take what, the standard application of putting learning online and then actually make it available and usable and, have positive outcomes for everybody, even people. One of the best accessibility arguments that I've ever heard is just, think about a colorblind person, where when you're looking at a screen, maybe you or I can see the difference between red and blue and green. And, so if I say, hey, look, this is, the button to click next is always green. Just click on the green button. If I can't see that, then I don't have, there's a really huge piece lost to me. And it's a surprising amount of people in the world who are colorblind. And so then there's little ramification to it as well. Beyond, sort of beyond that, I know that you wanted to also touch on something called XAPI. Tell me how, first of all, give us just a real, 30 seconds on what XAPI is, and then why do you think it's a game changer for, for not only data collection, but data analysis and what we can do with improving the learner experience going forward?
Right. So XAPI is nothing but it's like an acronym for Experience API. So after this COM was implemented, XAPI has come into picture right now. So it poses certain unique features like like the offline tracking, and then like I said, digital body language, and then tracking the entire learner experience, and reducing the need for this being as a super admin. You don't have to actually be there online every time. You just have to put in certain notifications over in there on the data set or the database, so that this kind of works automatically, at their own fancy. So this is what XAPI does, and it is just like a communication medium between the learner, the facilitator, and the LMS, and all of that. So it's a communication medium, it's an API, and it's used for communication. So basically it gives rise to one question, is that how are we actually going to track our course if XAPI actually comes into full force. Right now we would not even need an LMS to track a course, and that's where again the concept of LRS comes into picture. And so that's what I'm saying. So how is it that we are going to track a course without an LMS? So the answer to this question, I believe, is, I think, XAPI and LRS. So if you communicate between XAPI and LRS, so LRS is nothing but your learning record store. So again, LRS is just like your heart. It's like the circulation aspect of any XAPI ecosystem that is there. So the LRS stores any learning needs, and also it kind of enables the export of raw learning data. So this is what the LRS does. So when you basically help them both communicate, then I think the aspect of LMS gets out of the picture, and we can kind of just track the learner data only through the XAPI, which is actually going to be a pretty much easier job when compared to actually having an LMS online.
Super cool. Smruti, Sudarshan, I can't thank you enough. I know that, I'm sitting here in Mexico, and so for you, it is a very different time of the day. I really appreciate you taking time to speak with us today. This has been the e-learning hot seat from lmspulse.com and the e-learning success summit. Smruti will be online. She can see your comments in LinkedIn there, or I guess we're also on Facebook, and we're also on YouTube as well, but we'll call it LinkedIn Live right now. And, I really hope that people come and check out your presentation in the e-learning success summit, where you actually have a full presentation that, has some very nice data sets and shows how those data sets are used to really make some very significant decisions about how training is delivered across some of these big companies like LinkedIn, like Microsoft, some of the other big brands that you've worked with as well. But we'll look for you next time, and I can't wait for our next conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steven.